Good evening. We will go ahead and call this meeting of the town board and with the Water Sewer Advisory Committee to order. Regarding number 2, agenda changes and approvals, we have a request to add a closed session for 143-318.11A3 to consult with the town attorney to preserve attorney-client privilege. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
Move to approve the amended.
Kathleen? Second. Thank you, Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next is the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve. Submitted.
Move to approve is presented.
Kathleen?
Second.
Thank you, Megan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So, okay, and that takes us to number 4 on the agenda, in-depth discussion and topics. And the first one is Water and Sewer Advisory Committee and Board of Commissioners joint meeting as agenda.
Going to go to the front here? Guys here or just from my seat? Want me to go to the,
I'm sorry, Dan.
would you like me to go to the microphone or just from my seat? Discuss the.
Oh, the seat is good.
Okay, all right.
And just a quick reminder of the microphones, please. You have to get really close to them to be
Really close.
And it's beneficial for anyone with a hearing problem like myself to be able to hear you. So thank you for using my.
My name's Daniel Rollins. I'm the vice chair of the Water and Sewer Advisory Board. We have asked recently, the board is, for all those who are in from the public, the advisory board committee, we are a group of citizens that are volunteers that address issues dealing with the water and sewer system here in the town. Usually we are given issues from the town council to review and to discuss and see if we can come up with suggestions. We are an advisory board only. We do not have any we vote on suggestions for the committee, for the council. And suggestions are made and then they take those into consideration when actually addressing an issue that needs to be voted on. We've had, historically, we had 8 members total, 4 that live in town and 4 that live out of town, that live in the extraterritorial jurisdictional area of the town that receive the water. And I'm one of those. I don't actually live within the town limits. I live outside the town. As of right now, we don't even have that many. We're missing 2 out of town members. And that's one of our issues that we're going to be addressing here. Recently, as our memo we have sent, I think the council or the committee has kind of struggled with what exactly we're supposed to be doing. It's become apparent that we do, at each of our meetings, we do have members of the town staff who do come and prepare information for us, to present to us. We do understand that it is quite, they have to come after hours and they do have to prepare quite a bit of information for us. So recently, we have pretty much resolved most of the issues that we've been presented with, or at least had come to a decision to make suggestions to the council. So as of right now, we do not have a major issue, or I think we're kind of struggling to know what exactly we should be looking at right now. So I might not be, some of us feel that we have made suggestions that the council has pretty much ignored. So I'm not necessarily in that boat. I think I understand that that what we are charged with, we are there to make suggestions and review as a voice for the citizens and for the customers, and to make suggestions only. Like it's reaching to or getting to the point of we only have 2 out of town members of the board. It's been a while. There's not much interest. We've been trying to get those positions filled. And I think this kind of goes to the fact that there's not much interest. When we have meetings, I've been doing this, I guess this is my 7th year maybe. We we maybe had some people at the beginning, but I can't remember the last time we had people at, well, the pool issue with the backflow, right? We had people there. Pretty, those are the first people, but as of right now, otherwise, we have not had very many people at our meetings. It doesn't sound like, it seemed like the public has much interest in being at our meetings. I would think and I don't know, so we kind of feel like sometimes we've had some people missing from the meetings as well, who are on the board. Recently, it seems like we know, we see how much work that the town staff has to do to present information to us. It's quite a bit, and they do give up their time after hours to be there, and I noticed we've noticed it's put a heavy load on the utility staff. They are the ones that are coming. When I first started on the board, we had more representation from other parts of the town staff at our meetings, but now it's just the utility staff. And with the current budgeting issues and recently, well, they have had staff shortages, that it's been quite a burden on the utility staff. So although I think we believe that we have a good purpose here, I think the citizens should have a voice, and that we should have some input into it. I understand that there is, it's a burden for the town staff. And that if we're just meeting just to meet without really resolving an issue or providing input to the council, I think all of us have kind of been questioning what is the purpose? Why are we doing this? Is there something that we could be doing? Does the council have something that they want us to be looking at? How can we get this information to us? What should we be looking at? And how can we maybe not put such a burden on the town staff? So we would like the town council to at least review what we're doing for you. Are we doing something that you need? Is it something that could be done maybe at a lesser amount, maybe as a need-to basis, maybe emergencies? I think we're looking for a little direction, I believe, from the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think before we get to more discussion, I'd like to defer to Mayor Pro Tem English he's our current representative to the Water Sewer Advisory Committee, and maybe invite some feedback from your perspective, and then see where it takes us in terms of conversation.
Sure. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to all the folks that have served on this committee over the years and currently. I value we all value, but I value the input of all the individuals that serve on our advisory boards, and sometimes it doesn't always feel that way, maybe sometimes on your end, but the input that you all provide is very helpful for me to understand different perspectives and oftentimes different expertise. And a lot of you have specific sort of expertise in water and sewer stuff. So yes, thank you for everything that you've done as you're serving on that board. As you all know too, we've kind of trying to figure out what is the best purpose for this board, and me as the Mayor Pro Tem and been at two meetings this past year. It seems to be that that there's some obviously question with you all too, and so I think we really just need to figure out the best purpose, if there is still a purpose for this board. What I see is really valuable, that has always happened kind of over the years, is helping us inform our residents about our water sewer complexity. Because it's people all the time want to know why their rates are such, and what can be done about maintaining those or lowering those. And it's a very complex issue that I oftentimes struggle with explaining myself to our residents. Water and sewer costs are so expensive, but as you know, it's an old system. We have lots of unmet sort of maintenance needs that we need to take care of. And so obviously I want to hear from all of you to really kind of understand what you think is the best use of your time and the staff's time. I certainly don't want to continue a board that people don't feel there's value to the town and to the town board. But if there's another way that we can utilize your skills and your talent and expertise, and you're open for that, I'm interested in exploring those ways too. And again, I don't know if that's more of just a conduit for information and helping us provide and get that word out. This is more of are we gonna go around, Mark, and have time for questions, or just an appropriate time for questions, or what do you think?
Sure.
So I just had a couple, I just wanted to get a little bit of clarification on the letter that, we received a couple of weeks ago, and I don't have it in front of me, I was trying to pull it up. I think it's the second bullet point, which talked about, what's that one?
The recommendations? It says some WSAC recommendations have not been approved.
Yeah, so I wanted to dig into that a little bit to really kind of find out again, because this is my first time as mayor pro tem in the liaison to the board, but I really kind of want to understand what those kind of repeating things that have come up over time, multiple times, that you feel haven't been either fully addressed or never addressed. And then the other one, I think, is the last one, Megan, let's see the last one.
Advises on the utilities enterprise fund, which spans multiple departments beyond utilities.
Yes, and so that one too, I just wanted to find out what you need, what you feel was missing from either the financial side of the town, or what sort of information you felt would have been is more helpful, in the decisions that in the recommendations that you'll provide. So those are my two questions that really kind of came out of that, but all that said, I really, again, value all the hard work and energy and communication that has gone in to this board and everybody has served on it. I just want to say thank you.
Sure. I haven't been on this board too long, but the two, I guess, that come to mind are, I'd say the first one was, I think, whenever looking for funding for this very expensive water system that we're maintaining, there was someone brought in the idea of increasing block rates, just different fee structures to try and raise money. And I think we all mostly agreed on the board as far as that we wanted to approach that. I know that the commissioners voted that down. And I think the second one would be, I think, on the backflow prevention program regarding pools. I think both the staff and the board generally agreed that we wanted to maintain that, I guess, ordinance and whatnot, and that was another example of where the commissioners voted that down kind of summarily. So I think those are two stand out to me. I don't know if anyone has any other examples they can think of.
Well, I think, speaking for Saru, who is no longer on the board, right? Saru was definitely fighting on that hill for the out-of-towners, trying to find the way to have some understanding of why the difference between the in-town and out-of-town rates and why they were so disparately different. And I think she felt that we really didn't get listened to on that one. I think it was pretty clear eventually why, but that's okay. It is what it is. I think she always felt that because, and I think it's something that I feel being out of town. I only live a couple streets out of town, barely, but I don't think we get listened to. I don't know if what the out of town board members our suggestions or maybe consideration is taken into account. We don't get to vote for the town council. So, and that's understandable. And it's understandable what that means for us as customers out of town. But I think that she felt very much so that it was brushed aside without a careful, a little bit more detailed answer, I think, is what we were looking for. Even if the answer remained the same, just that something a little more than, well, that's the way it's always been, kind of thing. And, you don't get the votes, you know what I mean? So I think that was another issue that we thought, at least for the out of towners, felt like that, that was an issue that we felt was not really addressed fully.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Other questions from, or responses from the town board?
Oh. No, I was gonna answer like the second question. I think, like when I first started. Years ago, we did have more people from the town present, I mean, like the staff. And I know there was some shakeup in finance years back. That they kind of stopped showing up, but like recently now, it's just utilities. And I'm not sure if that was by design, I'm not really sure how that happened, to be honest with you. If it was on purpose, I don't, there's just no one else there, I don't know if they would add something. Cause we seem to be getting, those who do come have been great. Fantastic, thank you, they've been fantastic, with great information, they've been very helpful, and I'm not really sure actually what happened, why. The rest aren't coming anymore, it wasn't really clear.
Well, I think that's helpful, and I think for me, I know that we've worked really hard at getting some very good people on our utility staff over the last, last couple of years, 5 years, and so I think that part of that unit is much stronger, I think, than it was before. But I'm not sure, honestly, Daniel, about why finance is still not involved.
I mean, it might have been that we had, I think the town utilities staff was able to present, we were working on the, rate lines for a while, and they were able to present the software that was released. I'm gonna say prototype sort of it before, from the, consultants that we got to look at, right? So I don't know if maybe that's why no one else was involved, but they did a pretty good job of presenting that to us, utility staff. And then we went over that. Right. Okay.
Is there any feedback from staff on other departments attending these meetings? It's been a while since I've attended, so I don't have a firsthand account of.
Yeah, I think, I wanna say probably since COVID or even before, there's several departments involved in utilities. You have budget, you have finance. And some of the topics that they tackle are really not in the utilities department. And when I used to be on the board 10+ years ago, we would have frequent presentations from finance or budget. They would present, the budget for the year or how they came about a rate. And then if it was a finance policy like leak detection or something to do with billing, then finance would come talk about that aspect of it. So it's just been difficult with us being after hours, and the schedules just, have not jived, and we haven't been able to get other departments participation. I think except for once when we had a temporary finance director, and Linda came on one topic. I want to say that might have been one of our joint meetings. So we've had to, we don't mind presenting others' information, but we're sort of like the go-between. So we can't answer, what they want to know directly. Which sometimes it's frustrating, but it is what it is, and it has been what it has been. So that was the point in the memo, I think.
So was there a feeling among the advisory committee that the lack of participation was a signal that staff didn't care, or what's the sense of the importance of having lots of different departments participate?
I don't know if it's staff doesn't care. I think staff cares a lot. I think it's more, there's just this opaqueness. And the big question everyone always has is the rates and where are those rates coming from? And without finance being involved, it's really hard for us. I love hearing about pumps and, the distribution line, all that stuff. I don't think anyone else does. I think there's like I said, there's just a disconnect between that side of things, which are extremely important, right? That's how we keep lights on.
Gonna say one more thing about, I think well, at least when I sat in on the meeting that was talking about the budget for the town, or when it came to the water system and utilities, it kind of struck me that, when things at the meeting, when it came into like how many things are actually needed, what are we deferring? And it kind of, to me, I thought, well, maybe we're taking too much time from the staff. I think that was kind of a feeling. They've got a lot of constraints right now. They're juggling a lot of balls and trying to make things, put the square into a round hole when it comes to budgeting. Do they need to be here explaining to me what they do for a living? Right? So I thought, to me, that's when it kind of struck that maybe, are we doing anything? Are we really doing anything? Or are we more detrimental actually to the town by having these meetings? Especially, I think now, actually, when that report came out, right, that, I mean, that's not the end of the world. I'm saying, it sounded like they had a lot more to do. And things they were juggling and to make things happen, and I feel like maybe that's why some of us were like, well, maybe it's time to postpone this for a while, maybe, I think. But let's just. Although someone else, somebody can maybe tell us the reality of that. Is that true or not? I'm not sure. It just was a feeling that maybe we were getting at that time, at least some of us. Okay, me, I was.
And Garrett had his hand up.
Oh, I can wait, yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I guess we're looking for a role that we can play for the city. Where we can be helpful. And I guess in recent months, we've kind of wondered if we can find that. And so some input from the town board would be great. I think in the past, we've served a great function. There are lots of issues that have come up over the years. A lot of those have been resolved over time. And so now we're just wondering whether or not we've got a place that can be useful to the town board.
Oh, if it's okay, just to rewind back, I know the budget staff, when they read this, reached out to me and said they didn't recall a time that they had been asked to come participate and didn't show up. I think they're usually pretty good about showing up. So there's two different things that have transpired over the years related to budget, timing wise, that may explain some of the lack of engagement on that, because that ties in with the rates. So I don't remember exactly how many years ago, we used to deliver a draft budget to the board in February. We were the earliest by far in anybody in the state of North Carolina, and that about killed us. And so finally we went to the board several years ago and said, we can't do that anymore. We needed to do it, sort of more on track with handing the budget document in, early to mid-May, which is what most people do. So that made it harder, because in the prior years, we would go to the water sewer board, whether it was the utilities director at the time, and say, this is what I'm submitting to the manager. What type of feedback can you give? The water sewer board would provide feedback. Hey, we really want to support this. This is a priority, or this isn't a priority. By the time it got to my desk, I had feedback from this group, or I would be invited and we would all come and talk about it. So then, when we had all the problem with basically having nobody in finance incapable of getting almost checks cut, audits out for several years, this past year was the first year we did a budget where we weren't in the dark and having to just really do the best we could on really rough estimates. So I'd say the past 4 years, it's been all we can do. It's just in time delivery. There's no way for us to go to the board because I can barely get it to the board in time. So anyway, that's just some general information, and that's been difficult for us as well. And I don't see that changing dramatically. I mean, having the rate model that just got completed. I think that helps a whole lot. It's a lot easier to telegraph. We can see what's coming down on the radar. And I can't remember if that was also one of the recommendations this board made, water sewer and the staff. So I think that was a really good move for us to go ahead and do that to help us going forward.
I would just say that if our role is to be a liaison with the community, maybe we should think about doing fewer meetings and volunteer more tabling at events in town to get information out to the community, because I really enjoy coming to these meetings and understanding a little bit about how it works, but I don't feel like I transmit a lot of that information out into the community, even though I'm a water person in town, you know.
I think at the last meeting, that was that you all were talking about how to get that, like what events do you go to?
Right.
And I'm
we
not
haven't
sure what heck you know.
None of us volunteered to do anything.
Okay.
We've all been really busy.
I think it
But
came
if,
out in the
you know,
meeting, but.
But if we had that as an obligation, you know, as when you join this board, you go to 2 meetings a year and could do 2 tables or something like that, you know, then we would know that we'd be signing up for that. Yeah.
That raises a good question in response to your comment. Is that something that an advisory board should be doing?
Right.
Going to the community and explaining rates and best practices and things like that, maybe. But that's a little different from any other advisory board that we have to help educate people. Kathleen?
that's my thinking about this board. First of all, I also have appreciated through the years the work that this committee has done. It's been invaluable. Recognizing there are times that my vote has disagreed, it was not without taking into account, because the feedback was absolutely integral in testing the big picture. And providing context, and so I would like to, personally, I'd like to see this committee continue. I think the liaison role with the community is important. Very important, actually. And it's, you know, as complex as these issues are, it does take time to learn about them. The more folks that we have engaged and the more that can translate for the average resident or citizen, in-town, out-of-town water customer, it is, I think, very important and necessary. You know, one of the things that the memo brought up, and I've had I've had thoughts about, but haven't been able to wrap my head around how it would work. And that is fielding when customers do have complaints, because that's something that, you know, I've talked with some other folks in other areas where the boards will hear complaints, and, I don't know if I can see that could be overwhelming, at which point that is not a good idea. But I think there's some value of resident to resident deliberation too. So that's something, and I'm kind of curious from Eric, you and Marie, of what your thoughts are along those lines, because I can foresee some pitfalls, but I could see some benefit, and I don't know if my thinking has taken into all of it account everything it should.
I can go. I think that most of the things that citizens will want to come in and talk about are the utilities department doesn't handle.
Okay.
So that could be another source of frustration, because if they are given some type of authority to, you know, waive a late fee, or I'm not sure exactly what you have in mind. We have to consider as a whole the equity of the entire, you know, process, but it's not our department, that's finance department. So that would probably be my only concern. I do think, and we did for a while, the outreach tables, we did the water
Right,
tasting
right.
contest, and people seem to enjoy that. Where we compared our water to bottled water. And, you know, we did some last Fridays, they sort of changed that requirement for having a table out there. But as some of you have said, I think the greatest strength right now of the committee is when someone goes onto social media with misinformation. You know, these people have helped go, no, that's not quite true. You might want to call this or look at this. And that's been the best benefit as ambassadors, helping us understand the system. I don't know if that answers what you're looking for, but I guess that's my concern of the volunteer citizens given authority to sort of make decisions. Like you have other boards that do have authority to make decisions, but they have very strict guidelines. They have the UDO and the planning and all that stuff. So that's sort of what they operate under. Those are my thoughts. It's very loose when it comes to someone bringing in a hardship or a request to change, waive something, change something, and so on.
Can I add to that, Marie? So
Yes.
one thing I just kind of worries me a little bit is my preference for personal issues like that is to try to have just a one-on-one conversation, just because I don't want somebody to feel uncomfortable where they have to come in front of a group of 10 people, even very nice people like WSAC, and have to talk about their personal financial situation. Like that can be, you know, that can be an
In the
office.
public record.
And in the public record,
Right.
I just think I think a one-on-one conversation where they get some of that anonymity, and Bob can check me on this, but I believe that is one of the privileged things, if they want to talk about their rates, and we do not have to disclose that. So I prefer kind of keep that, you know, wall up so they can be a little bit more free and open with that conversation.
I know definitely, I think that personal confidentiality is paramount.
Yeah.
So anyhow, those were just my thoughts. Is I would hate to see this board disbanded. This is, you know, with the water and sewer fund being such a large portion of our budget, and it is the aspect of town services that, I mean, you can't escape. It is the commonality across everyone. And there are the issues. I mean, I'd like to see something, you know, quarterly, semi-annually, but I do think the community ambassador role is really important. And I'd like to see that amped up, actually.
Thank you.
You know, I remember when I chaired the Economic Development Commission, that was one of our roles, was out in the community, and way back when, I mean, things have changed then, but I think it's an important role, especially when there are those issues. And we do know that with the influx of a lot of new customers coming in, we're going to hear the same questions from new people, and it's going to be important to have a lot of folks that can communicate that. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Matt, Adrian?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, also when we rewrote the ordinance on leak adjustments, we did put in a process where, if I'm remembering correctly, where if someone didn't agree with the decision that was made, there was a process to have that heard by another staff member, I think the finance director, and made that process a lot clearer. Some kind of things that I've noticed since 2017, from 17 to 21, while I've been on the board, the town board members have rotated. We all took, I'm pretty sure we all took 2 months a year when the WSAC was meeting, every month. And I don't think that any of us really got a good sense of what WSAC was discussing because we only saw 2 of 12 meetings, every year. It wasn't until we designated Mayor Pro Tem, which I think Mayor Bell for making that suggestion as he was stepping off as being Mayor Pro Tem and I was stepping in, that we have a designated person who goes. And over the 2 years that I went to WSAC, I noticed the conversations about what's our purpose, what should we be working on, you know, where's the best effort to be expended, to the point where the meeting shrunk from 12 to 6. But even within those 7 years, you know, I noticed a lot of good work that WSAC did. A lot of y'all participated in that, you know, ratcheting down the minimum billing usage, the rate analysis and rate models, having our bills be more transparent in terms of their design. Heavily weighing in on the transition. Was it Fathom we were using before the transition away from Fathom, which no one was happy with? You know, issues of leak adjustments. And I think those were all and have been very good projects for WSAC to work on. I think where the big boulders and the big walls are is the limitations on budget and statutory authority. When we looked at the block rates, the reason that was a no-go for us was that ultimately the largest water users in our community are institutional users, UNC Healthcare, the school system, the county government. And that would just be squeezing those costs to something else, whether it's your medical billing or your property taxes or something, because those institutions need to absorb those costs elsewhere and offset them elsewhere. And so we heard, I think, from UNC Healthcare, we heard from the schools district. The school district actually wanted us to find a way to cut their water rates at the exact same time. But most of their schools are actually outside of town. And then, you know, on the backflow prevention, I think what this board really struggled with was having an ordinance that had been in the books since 2008 that hadn't been enforced and how to navigate that. And so allowing grandfathering of those systems before, but requiring it moving forward seemed to be a really, you know, really good middle ground. But, you know, as I sat there for those 2 years, I also had the same question of, you know, what should WSAC be working on? What should their mission be? And I still don't have an answer for that because so many of the big blocks have been reduced. I know Saru was very upset about I don't think I'm saying anything that she wouldn't say out in public, but, you know, very upset about the 95% surcharge. And that's one of the things that I've wanted us to do is break out the administrative costs versus the water usage cost for our customers. So that part's more transparent. But when you look at other municipalities in the area, Rollsville being one of them, they get their water from the city of Raleigh. They pay a very similar surcharge because unless you're Dan living 2 streets over from the town line, there is an additional cost to serving out of town customers, and 2/3 of our customers, did I get that right? 2/3 of our customers are out of town.
On water, it's almost 50-50.
And then on sewer, it's
60/40.
Yeah.
okay, it's sewer that I was thinking of. And there's a huge cost to serving those folks once you get outside of city center. And so ultimately reducing the out of town rates would mean raising the in-town rates. And I don't know if we found that good, healthy medium of reducing the out of town rate to in a meaningful way without subsequently significantly boosting the in-town rate. So that's kind of my observations and thoughts. I think one thing that could be a possibility if it's more of the community outreach component and bringing it all together when we really need a lot of hefty policy thought partnership would be moving perhaps WSAC instead of being an inactive or even an abolished advisory board, going the way of I think it's our cemetery committee, which moved to unstaffed, meet on their own. And I don't necessarily think that you need staff support to do the community outreach part. You would need staff support on more of the policy stuff, but that might be a way to strike a middle ground, between continuing full steam ahead, but still having that community liaison component.
I'd like to make a couple of observations myself. Having served on an advisory board for 8.5 years, I've, been in your shoes. And, that's how I got involved in town life to begin with. So it was a very meaningful experience for me, and I hope that, you have found meaning in your work on the committee over the years. Wanted to observe that in my time here, I've seen that the town has grown in size and become more sophisticated, and the staff that we have now doing water and sewer is more sophisticated, more capable than in the past, and that's a natural evolution of the growth of the town and the skills of the people we hire to run the departments. So I think that staff capability has grown tremendously. And the Water Sewer Advisory Committee has helped tackle successfully so many of those initial things that were set out to do. So in my mind, kind of where we are is looking at what should the scope of the committee be. I agree with my colleagues that I think we should definitely keep Water Sewer Advisory Committee. It probably doesn't need to meet as frequently as it has in the past. If there's no work to do and you're having trouble getting quorums and people interested in participating because there is a perceived a real lack of meaningful work to be done. I mean, I'm probably like you. If I'm going to be on a committee and doing something, I want to be involved. I want to be doing something, solving a problem, making life better. There's got to be some kind of purpose to do that. So in my mind, I'm thinking, what should the scope be? How do we find out what that is? We don't have to decide anything tonight or by any means. But that's kind of where I'm at, is trying to figure out what should the scope be and what work is there to do. I guarantee there will be some project, some issue that will come up, guaranteed, in the next 12 months, where we will say, boy, it'd be nice to have some subject matter expert and resident opinions helping inform our policy decisions that we have to make in these areas. So that's kind of where I'm at. Megan, do you have any thoughts?
Being new to the board and only being to a few of your meetings, I definitely sense frustration of what are we doing? That's probably one of the bigger takeaways that I had when I attended a meeting. So you having this memo sent to us, it falls right in line with that. Now, if we went from the extreme of abolishing the task or the committee to keeping you, or you're running the same way with the same frustration that you are today, I would think there's got to be some middle ground that would actually be better. I don't think of getting rid of the task, or sorry, I'm looking at the word task force, so I keep saying that. Getting rid of the committee, I don't think that is the answer. I think there's definitely so many things that you all mentioned that they've done in the past that, and stuff that is going to come up in the future. There's going to be a special project that we don't all have the capacity to know what the citizens are thinking, and to get your out of town input and in-town input. I think that is all value added to the whole process. I don't know exactly what the scope should be. I think that's just a bigger discussion about what you all should be focused on. I do like the idea of maybe not as often. I feel like that might be something that might be more beneficial, so that when you do meet there, it feels like you're doing more and more. Like, as you said, like, you want to be active. You don't want to just sit there and, wait for something. So, anyhow, that's just a long way of saying, I think there's going to be a middle place, but getting rid of the committee is not the answer in my mind. But changing perhaps the scope is, we should be looking at.
Evelyn, what are your thoughts?
You might have what Matt said and what Rob said. I'm sorry, I'm always the one who complains. Sorry. I think what the others have said on the board, I basically agree with. Is I've been to meetings when there was a quorum. And when you had somebody who took minutes. Who basically led and I can remember when you put it to the.
I should take the call, sorry. Should I take the call, sorry.
Oh, okay, well, I agree with what utilities director, that's right, said, and I agree with what you said. But there could be a time when I think you're needed. We've got so many things going with everybody wanting to build this and build that and build these and build those. It overwhelms, I think it overwhelms me somewhat. And I think there'll be a time that the board is gonna want to call on you. But I don't know that if you can't get a forum that makes somebody come to a meeting, unless somebody calls and asks each one, are you coming? I don't know. Because if you're really interested in any board, you should go. I don't think I've missed but maybe 1 or 2 meetings in my years of service to this board. And I don't want to miss a meeting because if I do, I'll miss something. You can bring minutes all you want, you gotta have somebody to take minutes. And that was the person, Michelle Law, Ms. Laws, who took the minutes and it was, and then you would have outside speakers come. So I think maybe if you call the ones who are not coming, you say, why aren't you coming? And you say, is something wrong? I don't know, because the board here usually has a quorum. You don't have a quorum, we're like you, it's very seldom we don't have a quorum. When somebody's sick or something, has a family crisis, that type thing, so. I would say you can meet periodically, but somebody needs to be there to share things with you. But rather than send you out on your own.
I'm pretty new to the board, so this isn't my personal experience, but what I've heard from people is a frustration, not really of what are we doing, but that we put a lot of work into making some advice and people don't feel listened to. They don't feel like, that the advice they've offered has been taken into account. That's sort of more the sense I get than a lack of direction. I don't know, you guys have been on the board longer, maybe. Talk a little more about that.
I personally, I think it's I think direction. I mean, we have had issues, we've had issues. I've been, I think, almost 7 years, I think. In a month or two, it'll be 7 years. But we've had issues that we did look at. But I think after maybe after the backflow issue and how the rates were kind of, listening to what was going on with the budget, and I think we kind of, to me, I thought, okay, well, where are we at now? What do you want us to look at? Because if those kind of issues were maybe kind of solved for us, right? Because forced to maybe happening. So I think there was, I didn't necessarily feel like one of the ones that wasn't necessarily listened to. But I do hear you saying there was definitely frustrations on the board of not feeling listened to. But I think to me at this point, I do feel like since we have kind of addressed most of the major things that we've looked at in the last few years, I do kind of feel like we're kind of looking for what would you like us to look at now? I mean, I think what's great about our committee is that we have got some really intelligent, amazing people on the board. Really great experiences, well-educated, thoughtful, and meaning to be here. I mean, they want to be here and make a difference. So I think it'd be great if we could tap into that some more. I do have 1 more year that I'm allowed to do this before I'm booted off, but I think I'd like to help 1 more year. I actually enjoy coming. I like to actually be a voice for the community. I think it's important. It is a good way for I mean, I actually think it's kind of a shame that there isn't more people here. That they don't come and see what we're talking about. Because we do have great information from the staff about what's going on. What are they working on? Where are the staff holes in the town? You know, what are they up against? I think it's great. And I do enjoy that part of it and being able to be, having to hear that, or getting to hear that, I should say, be having the privilege. And I do think that it does serve a good purpose, I think. Right now, though, I think we kind of feel like we're floundering a little bit from what we need to be doing.
And I think you raised kind of an interesting point that I feel like as a new member, we're losing a couple of really knowledgeable people who are going to age out. And so maybe we can think about, are those time limits really important? Because these are people who have experience, who are dedicated to being on the board, who would continue if they could, probably. And we might be a little lost without them.
You must be talking.
Both of you.
But what I would say is, I do think there's a little bit of a difference between when it comes to being listened to. I can listen to someone and not take their advice, but I think people conflate. You didn't do what I asked you to do, therefore I wasn't listened to. I think that this board has taken into account the proposals. Sometimes they just don't work in the larger ecosystem, but I do think that having a new scope and getting, I don't know, Eric, if the mission of the advisory committee has been changed dramatically since it was first, or really looked at since it was first implemented in the early 2000s. But maybe that's a joint conversation of doing a new scope where we are in alignment with what the town needs and what y'all want to work on. So that it does feel more fruitful. When you're working.
You know, part of what I'm hearing is, agenda, you know, what are we working on? I don't hear it so much as scope. I know we keep using the word scope, but it's, you know, the issues surrounding the enterprise, you know, the services and enterprise fund. That it's that agenda and laying out that agenda calendar with that kind of thing. You know, and when I was on advisory boards, you know, it came down to those agendas, and it may be, and this is where we're still on our call. We do know that there's gonna be issues coming up. We can bank on it. What they are, that we can't bank on. And it seems to be, well, what's the cadence of when those issues are gonna be coming up? You know, certainly this board, because I was on this board before Fathom came on, and this board was invaluable in the questions that were asked. They were absolutely on point. You know, going through that entire experience, this board was critical. You know, dealing what we've been dealing with on how do we address the rates equitably. Again, this board has been absolutely invaluable. The policies that, you know, who would predict the backflow? You know, it's not predictable. So the cadence, to me, it's that agenda setting and the cadence. The ambassadorship, I think, is a little separate. I do hear that there's been discussions of how to expand on that, and I do think that needs to be expanded. But you know, I would like to see, again, this board kept, but maybe quarterly or semi-annually as set. I do think we need to keep where, you know, WSAC and town board are joint meetings. I think they, again, have been invaluable. But I would like to, yeah, especially on those agendas, yes.
Yeah, you said something that made me think, and perhaps the commissioners and the WSAC can talk about it. I know Eric sent you guys sent the commissioners a very long and very complicated spreadsheet. We love a complicated spreadsheet in here. Is that, something like that where it's a very deep dive type of thing, that could be something WSAC would have to spend 4, 5, 6 hours over multiple meetings, really trying to dissect. And could summarize and offer opinions, and with the bonus, that's a rate model thing, that would be an opportunity for out-of-town ratepayers to offer an opinion. It doesn't necessarily mean the commissioner is gonna agree with it. It certainly means that doesn't mean that, just because we didn't accept the recommendation. To do one thing or another, at least, we got a deep dive and it got looked at, and that there was a voice for folks out of town. So I was giving that as an example of
I
that.
think that's critically important, and I would like to see that.
And I think what, to me, as somebody who observes WSAC is, a lot of times hear the question, well, what do they want to hear from us on? So if we get like a dialogue with commissioners, hey, we just got this spreadsheet, I'm bringing that up as an example. We just got this spreadsheet. Would WSAC be willing to spend a couple meetings on this with staff, with budget staff, with finance staff, and come back and offer, some analysis and thoughts, for us, things that they think we should look at. Take a 20-page thing and turn it into a 1-page report.
I think things like that are absolutely invaluable. That was, and again, I hate to use the same example, but when I chaired the Economic Development Commission, that's what, that was one of the things that we did for the county commissioners, which, as an example, taking all of every incentive policies of every county and municipality and 8 county region, well, actually it's more of that because it was Piedmont Triad and RTP, distilling what it was, presenting recommendations to, to the county commissioners without having them, they didn't have to read all of that stuff. That's not the best use of their time. So things like that, absolutely.
Is that fair for like Daniel, is my observation semi-accurate that you'd be happy to look at it, that you'd need the commissioners to say, hey, this is something we're interested in your opinion on, please see attached, is that?
Yeah, that would probably be better.
Yeah, I think it's that level of direct.
And keeping in mind, I think since I was on the board for 8 years, I think we continue to get better at focusing on the work that needs to be done and minimizing work that doesn't need to be done. It's a basic lean principle. And examples of this include with our comprehensive sustainability plan. We tie the goals and actions of that and the strategic plan into the work that we do in our board agenda. We are on message for the work that the town needs to be done. So as we revisit what is the appropriate scope and tasks for the advisory committee, I would say keep that in mind as we think about that, because we don't want you focusing on things that won't result in something beneficial to the town or the town board's decision-making or policy creation and things like that. Let's make sure that the work that you're doing is really meaningful for the larger work that the town is tasked with doing as well.
It's the same vein of that. If it's something that you guys can do in 30 minutes, and then you have to explain to us over a course of 6, 7, 8 hours, I don't know if that has that much value.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
There's a phrase that Dan used a couple of years ago. Dan, I forgot what the meeting was about, but you asked the question, is this the right work? So I'm not saying anything new. You said that yourself a couple of years ago, so.
Very excited.
Oh, thank you. I want to follow up on what the mayor said, and Mo said also, I maybe misunderstood what Brian was saying. But whatever the tasks are, I think it's really important to think them through, because after 27 years in this room, or various rooms, things can sound good in the moment, but then they're not effective over the long run. And maybe I didn't understand what Brian was saying, but I was cringing with the amount I was worried about duplicate of work that we were talking about. We're gonna just create a giant task to redo the entire rate model when we paid an expensive consultant to sit up here on YouTube, the board and the staff, and explain everything, and we embedded it inside of our budget document. So if, so that, using that as an example, please think through, is it worth it? And is it gonna make a difference? Because if we did that, we would spend hundreds and hundreds of hours and probably do nothing when that process is gonna be embedded in the budget. I may have misunderstood and probably misunderstood Brian, but that's my point is, please, we all need to work together to make sure we're not wasting our time and we're not spinning our wheels. So, and it just gets back to the clarity of mission that everybody else is.
Well, I hear a consensus among the town board that there's value in the Water Supervisor Committee continuing. We should revisit the scope of what we're asking you to do. And I think we're really interested in you telling us what you think you could be doing as well. You know, you probably know better than we do, what it is. And then working with staff to kind of help refine those two things and maybe come back in a future meeting with, you know, some outcomes of, you know, what the thinking is about the appropriate scope and meeting schedule. And just the size of the board also, the right size. If we're having trouble getting people involved, should we scale it down a little bit? Things like that. So I guess I'd be interested in hearing all kinds of suggestions. And then asking staff to help us refine and distill those things.
And I do think that important, I know that we spent, at town board, we spent a lot of time on standardizing our board processes and procedures and such. But the point with the term limits, I do think is worth taking, you know, considering. I hate losing experience. Process should serve people. People do not serve process. And so I want to make sure we don't lose talent unnecessarily.
Thank you. And I'll say, let me just say, because Matt Eford is not here, is out, and I'm looking to Stephanie over here, who has a lot of institutional memory of advisory boards and policies. Laughing. Unfortunately, yes, you do. So anyway, we'll just kind of acknowledge.
Do you want to say something first?
I think
It doesn't matter whether I say it first or second.
I think one of the things I would like to see is it be on an as needed basis. And when you have something that you want us to discuss, then you send it through Marie or Bryant and say, hey, let's set up a meeting, and when can we do it? They have a topic they want us to talk about, and give us an outline of the topic, and we'll get together and start chewing it over. But I've been to several meetings in a row now where we've had virtually nothing to talk about other than the minutes, Marie's report, and that's really it. And that's frustrating to set aside your, Thursday night for a meeting, and then to come here and there really not be anything that we're accomplishing.
I'm super glad I let you go first. I was gonna say, okay, so I'm Stephanie Trueblood. I'm not speaking as Matt Eford right now, speaking as someone who's worked for the town for 18 years and has staffed 5 different boards over my time. And I lived through a very similar situation with the cemetery board as the staff to the cemetery board. I had wonderful volunteers. They came every month. Mostly what I did is I put on a pony show for them while they were there to make them feel like they were meaningful. But once we got our operations and the public space division up and running and we were fully staffed, most of the things that the committee had originally sort of been formed for were now being handled by staff, and there really wasn't a point for them to get together. So then they would get together and they would sort of dream up problems and dream up projects for me to do and give me work to do, which I didn't actually have time for. And it was because they were trying to participate and be meaningful, but it
it became a burden because I was stuck on 3 other boards at the time. So it was a very difficult emotional process to say, let's shut this down and let staff just handle cemeteries. Now that we have Lindsay, who's basically our cemetery manager, she was able to do what the board was originally built to do. And it became much more efficient when that board went quiet. Some of those people ended up serving on other boards, which was put them into a position of being helpful and meaningful in a different way with the town. I have another committee that's called the signage committee for our interpretive signs that are located all around town. And that is not a real committee. It's basically when we have a new sign that sort of rises to priority, that the town board kind of helps me make that list of, and the Alliance for Historic Hillsborough. I pull in people that have expertise on that topic, and then also people who are just interested in serving and willing to help do the, sort of scut work of pulling together the signage information, and they meet for a period of time pretty intensively until that sign is done, and then it's sort of gone. So there's still help there, but it's not an official board. It's more just volunteers who step up when something needs to be done. And sometimes there may be no meetings for a year or more. Sometimes there may be a meeting every single month or twice a month for a certain amount of time, just depending on the workload. And then the third example I was going to give is the Parks and Rec Board, which has twice in my 18 years gone to a quarterly meeting. And in fact, one year I think only met 3 times because the quarterly fell like around the holidays. And those meetings, that meeting schedule was determined by the workload. So we had an annual plan of things that needed to be accomplished. We realized, hey, we could do this in 4 instead of 11 meetings. And I think the Parks and Rec Board members were happy to have less meetings to attend, but it meant the meetings that we did have, we really needed quorum and really needed to do a lot of work. So I just bring that up as some alternatives. Staffing a board is incredibly time consuming, even if it seems like we're just, conveying what we're already doing. Sometimes just getting our thoughts wrapped around what we've done in the last month and making sure that we inform you of everything, it takes a lot of time to prepare. So I would suggest trying to be as efficient as possible with staff time because we have such limited capacity, so much to do. And maybe try to figure out what is the right framework for this moving forward. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Perspective is always welcome. Okay, so looking at the clock, we've been a little over an hour on this topic. Is there any other discussion or thoughts to share before we kind of get some clarity on what the charge is to staff? Because I think we're going to lean on staff to help us coalesce these ideas and then maybe come back with recommendations in the future. Brian, Marie, does that sound like a reasonable approach to next steps?
I think so. I think what would probably certainly help me, and I'm sorry, engineers are a very literal species, so Megan hopefully can back me up on this. We can't do it in charades, we're not gonna understand it. If you tell me what you, if you want us to propose some things for them to discuss, like we can do that, or there's some specific topics. And I tried to give an example. Sorry, Eric, I wasn't trying to, you say, yeah, we should definitely present that. I'm just not like, hey, we've got this thing, it's more than we can dive into, there's specific examples that we need to, like Stephanie said, help prepare for. We're here for it, we're happy to help. I'm always happy to talk about work, so if you can stop talking, it's a trick.
Well, let me refine my suggestion.
Yes.
I'm thinking back to the lean concept and one of the concepts in lean is called voice of customer. So we've talked a lot about it, a lot of things, and I'm probably going to come up with some other thoughts and questions later. My suggestion would be for you to poll us, send us email. Give us your suggestions and thoughts to the town board, to the Watershed Advisory Committee, to other staff, like Stephanie, who staff multiple boards. And that's the basis from which you can make some recommendations to us in the future.
We can do that. We can pull everybody around, we can pull off.
Is that reasonable?
Yeah. Happy to do it. We try to coalesce those thoughts into a recommendation.
Because I do want to hear ideas from WSAC on projects or issues or things that they feel are important to look at. I think that's where we do benefit from all of us contributing to those ideas, so I don't want it to just be, when I was, and I'm an adult child of an engineer, and there is a support group for that. But, you know, if it's just me coming up with ideas, well, that's very limiting. You know, we've got, you know, between staff and WSAC and our board together. I mean, it is a complex thing. There's, even within our comprehensive sustainability plan, there's a lot of pieces and moving parts where, again, I think the skills and expertise and thought processes that this board represents is very meaningful and be helpful. So I just want to make sure that it's not just the five of us that are generating ideas.
Great point. Thank you, Dan. Dan, from your perspective, we're on the right track here?
Yeah, well, I think one of those things, I heard you say that policy, right? What is the policy? Like, do we have some policy things that we want to look at? I mean, I think we've gotten lost in the weeds, right? We've been looking at, maybe there are bigger policy questions that we've never really been addressed or brought to us, I think. That might be, if you're looking for something, maybe a little direction on the policy or something about the town for us to kind of hammer out, be a voice for the town, for the customers, right? I don't know if we've done a lot of that. To me, it feels like we haven't done a lot of that, especially in the last couple of years. Maybe that might be something to look at. I personally enjoy working on being here and coming to this. I think it's been a great way for, it's a shame that more people don't see what we do, because the staff does bring a lot of information to us. And I've learned a lot about how it works. I think they do put in a lot of great time, and I think maybe if we just, and I think we could do something. I just think we need a little bit of direction. That's all.
Thank you. Well, as a closing observation, I'll say that as an elected official, when we're meeting with our peers, or, you know, we're kind of outside the Hillsborough bubble, and somebody asks us what's exciting about Hillsborough, we frequently say water and sewer. It's a very well kept secret that's the most life sustaining infrastructure that the town has, and you know what it takes up in terms of our budget. So we get the importance of water and sewer, and it excites us, and we love to tour the facilities and see how things work, and we really get excited talking about infrastructure, so especially water and sewer. So thank you for what you do. Okay, well, if there are no other comments, we will, I guess we will adjourn the joint hearing. Take a little break and we will continue with our agenda in a few minutes.
Do you need a motion to adjourn?
Do we need a motion? Sarah says no.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will continue with item 4B, rezoning request for 128 West Morgan Lane. Shannon.
Evening. So as a refresh on this, since it's been a while since we saw it before the summer break. This item was heard at public hearing on April 18th. It is for rezoning on West Margaret Lane. The property currently has a special use zoning, which no longer really exists. But it limits it to about one kind of basic office use, which was very limiting. So the applicant has requested to either do a general use rezoning or a conditional use rezoning. A conditional use rezoning limits the uses. So we discussed that at the public hearing and the planning board. The planning board did recommend denial of both rezonings 3-2. However, this board at their meeting on June 10th, earlier this year, did discuss being open to the list of uses that was provided, and I'll kind of refresh what those were. But minus a few uses, and so we needed Mr. Lloyd here. As a matter of law, the applicant does have to consent to having those uses further reduced. So the original list of uses for the conditional zoning district were artisan studio, brewery, building trade contractor office, dwelling accessory, dwelling single family, gallery museum, microbrewery with a special use permit, office and professional services, personal service businesses, pharmacy retail, restaurant, retail sales, rental of goods wholly within an enclosed structure, and veterinarian animal hospital. This board discussed wanting to cut the brewery with a special use permit, restaurant, and veterinarian animal hospital because it didn't feel like it was congruent with the surrounding uses. And Mr. Lloyd is here to discuss that with you all as well.
Could you please repeat the three that we talked about?
The board wanted to cut brewery with a special use permit, restaurant, and veterinarian/animal hospital.
I'm just looking at the brewery and the microbrewery, this, they're very similar terms.
My microbrewery is smaller, but it's a similar use.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Lloyd, do you have any comments or suggestions or anything else you would like to add to the conversation? Are you amenable to those excluding those three things that we suggested?
You can't hear too good.
Yeah, make sure you.
Me too.
As a result of your public hearing in April, when this rezoning was thoroughly aired, there was three, I think, concerns. You probably have in front of you a list of these allowable uses. There's three that you have a problem with. One was a brewery, one a restaurant, and another a veterinary and animal hospital. I could never envision using that property for either one of those with or without your approval. So having said that, the three that you're concerned with, you can remove them with no problem with me.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
Well, I think now we'll just, I guess you may have a seat and we'll go around the table and ask questions probably to staff. Matt, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, just to, Shannon, so when the planning board voted 3-2 to deny, just a little bit more insight as to why staff is suggesting approval.
What now, Matt?
No, I was talking to Shannon. Oh, yeah, sorry.
So staff feels like this is a reasonable request. Just limiting the property to one office use is pretty limiting. It does have some residential neighbors, so I think it's reasonable to go ahead and narrow those uses down. Again, the planning board vote was 3-2, so that's pretty close.
Those are all my questions. My other question was for Mr. Lloyd, and he's already answered the question. So we're all good.
Rob? I do not have any questions. I support the rezoning as presented with the three restrictions that were granted. So if Mr. Lloyd's okay with that, I support
I
that.
didn't understand him.
I was saying, I support actually the rezoning as we talked about the last time with the three things that we had taken out. And I don't have any questions.
You don't have any of the preferences of what could be there, should be there, would be there.
Well, I do believe that a veterinarian, a restaurant, and a brewery should not be there. I'm okay with all the other
But did
conditions.
you have anything that you thought might be?
Not with the other uses.
You can't speak to, so that's, okay. I follow what you mean.
And I have no questions.
I have no questions either.
I have no questions and I too support the rezoning with these 3 items removed. The current tenants I expect will be there a long time and they're fabulous, that in 20 years, 30 years from now. I'm hoping that we do see, that it's, if we have a salon, if we have a medical office, if we do have a massage therapist or rehab specialist, I would like to make sure that we have those options. So, I support the rezoning request as amended.
And technically, Shannon, just make sure that we're doing this correctly. We're looking for a motion to amend the de facto conditional zoning district with these additional limitations.
Yes, and you'll need a motion that the action is consistent or is not consistent with the vote that you all plan to make.
Thank
Wait a
you.
minute, may I ask you a question? Is it okay if I vote for, if I like one, like what we say as it is?
It will depend on the motion that's on the floor.
Well, I mean, to ask it each person, can I say that?
You can say whatever you want.
I can.
Yeah. Yes.
Evelyn,
Very
now's your time to shine.
Evelyn, do you?
Okay,
What are
I'm
your
for
thoughts?
leaving it as it is, the official zoning can be changed to conditional use, but, think it's a residential neighborhood. And I think that it seems to fit well, it's convenient, doesn't take up a lot of people, a lot of cars and things, and I just think that's the best. And you've got all of the people who live on that street seem to like it. We got all these letters and we got people who spoke. And they liked it like it was, they didn't want to see it changed. So I don't want to see it changed. However that fits. I like for it to be the office and professional uses, services, basically as it is, the office.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Any other comments or suggestions? Is there a motion?
So
Someone
what,
like to
so
make?
can you clarify the motion that needs to be made?
I'd like to make a motion, approving the rezoning request to rezone the property to neighborhood business conditional zoning. Is that good, Shannon?
And it's
And then
consistent.
it's consistent with the comprehensive sustainability plan.
And it's consistent with the comprehensive sustainability.
And I second.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Kathleen. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
We want to make sure everybody, all y'all, a holiday next month. Our 41st anniversary. We've got more sponsors than we've had in the last 10 years since the Optimist Club's had it. We're gonna have double the amount of vendors and just get lots of exposure around it all over the states. Please come.
Right.
I want you to talk too.
By the way, I taught him everything you know.
Don't hold me to it.
Okay, committee updates and reports. Matt.
I don't have any, maybe updates or reports. I did put, an article at everyone's desk and some of the staff that was here. But it's a Politico article, that I thought was interesting. The headline reads, "America is not a museum. Why Democrats are going big on housing despite the risks." And what the genesis of the article was at the DNC last week, which I happened to attend. Both President Obama and Vice President Harris talked about the need for zoning reform as part of a key or a block or whatever cliche you want to use for getting more housing that's affordable and attainable for folks. And what blew me away was, I forget which industry group it was, estimates that zoning and other land use policies can account for anywhere from 30 to 40% of the cost of building a unit of housing, which blew my mind away. But I don't think, nor it would be advisable that we obviously ditch our UDO until Shannon, you're good, you don't have anything to do the rest of the year, to get that down to zero. But that is part of our affordable housing, formula or line of attack when we talk about it. So I think it's an interesting article. They didn't have a print function, so I had a copy and paste, so there's no links. But if you Google that, I think you can probably find the article. But I think it just reinforces the task we have when we do the UDO and its connections to affordable housing. I am a YIMBY evangelist, so I will be happy to quarterback that perspective when we talk about UDO. But I do think it's really important because there are things in our UDO, like with multifamily housing and the elevation of a building, whether or not it's built into a hill or not, and the maximums that are involved in some of that. So I think it's interesting. We'll see what happens after November. But if there is a paragraph that said, if the pleas work, it would send cheering mayors, city council members back to their hometowns to pick battles with planning boards. So I hope we don't pick any battles, but it is going to be something that, if it becomes federal policy, will trickle down and whatnot. I do plan to make my pleas to some of the powers that be. That part of that is also money for water and sewer infrastructure, because we can't build something if we can't put a water pipe up. That's my update.
Thank you, Matt. Rob.
Let's see, so I don't have a whole lot again. Parks and Recreation meeting last week, we had a guest from the Expedition School come and talk to us about how the changing ordinance affects what they do sometimes at the park with some of their special events and bigger events that they have more than 75 people. The changes that we had made, it would not allow groups of larger than 75 people, and that would affect some of their school functions. So we talked a little bit about that, and we decided to pursue a possible memorandum of understanding between the Expedition School and the town. So that will be coming to us in the future about allowing more than 75 people there for some of their special school events. Then we also talked about we reviewed the draft of the Cates Creek Park Master Plan and updated the Cates Creek Master Plan. That's all I have, other than the last thing is just Eric, a big thank you to everybody that was involved in the storm cleanup. Again, I was just amazed at how quickly they were able to get our open public spaces open again. So thank you, please let everybody that was involved, I know that we really appreciate that.
Will do. Thank you, Rob. I have two quick updates. One is I met with the Orange County Remembrance Coalition's Historic Marker Committee. They are planning to dedicate a memorial plaque, like a historic sign, on the back side of the courthouse, the historic courthouse, the side facing the jail on November the 3rd. So mark your calendars. And this marker is going to commemorate the lynching of Daniel and Jefferson Morrow in August of 1869. And then I brought welcome to a group of Duke students who were, it's very interesting. I'll invite Eric to say a few words about it because it's so fascinating that they were a group of finance directors from African nations. And so they came and they sat here behind the desks, and staff and I talked about our budget process and how we do performance metrics and other things, and it was fascinating, and they asked really, really good questions. So Eric, do you want to say a few more words about that?
Sure, I think we've done this several times, like Duke University has a program, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks a year. People come from around the world. We've had other years where there was folks, most of the mid-career professionals were from places in Asia, as the mayor said. I think everybody was from African countries. There was one person from Nepal. The first person to introduce themselves was the Minister of Finance from Ghana. So it's like, wow, it's intimidating because there was a tremendous amount of knowledge, and they were extremely gracious and smart, and as the mayor said, asked a lot of questions for several hours. So they the person who runs the program from Duke had found first our balanced scorecard when we use that, and they like that as sort of a way of connecting, like how do we use data when we can to make decisions. So,
Very flattering that people of that caliber would be interested in what Little Oglesburg does. So it's very creative.
Mark, can you repeat that date?
November the 3rd. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I have not had any standing committee meetings or anything, since our last meeting, but I did attend the North Carolina Department of Insurance fraud seminar. And so we went over just some items that, what to look out for. And it was poignant with Storm Debbie that just came through, and I know that was one person who had a roof leak, so I was able to share all the things that I learned at the little seminar with that person about what to look for. So, but it was interesting. And then this week I have the TDA coming in. That's all I've got right now for updates.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Um,
Glad you're back.
yeah, me too. And I'm the coughing is asthma. But I did want to share that in July was the National Women in Municipal Government. It's the 50th anniversary of WMIG. It's the 100th anniversary for National League of Cities, of which NCLM is part of, and North Carolina WMIG, of course, is part of National WMIG. The focus we looked at, we were in the Fort Lauderdale area, the resourcing that the state has for human trafficking, for intimate partner violence, rape crisis, wipes everything that North Carolina offers anywhere in the state off the map. I was absolutely stunned at the resources that are provided. Got a lot more information here just to share, but it's given a lot of food for thought because we have dire needs, and also human trafficking, because they bring all of that together. It is not bifurcated, very strong. We also heard from different organizations, not only on community grant writing, project support and things like that. A lot of the services actually the COGS and for our COGS provides, but across the nation, some of the, the COGS don't provide some of that, but it was eye-opening. And like I said, at least on the domestic violence, human trafficking piece, food for thought, because our services, comparatively speaking, drop, not even a drop in the bucket. So with WMIG, there's 2 conferences. There's a summer conference, and then there's the National NLC. National NLC is in November. We are a member. And it is also in Florida. It'll be in Tampa. The partnership in homelessness is looking at doing restructuring on governance. I was able to attend part of the meeting. I just could not attend the full meeting. So I know there was a vote on governance, the proposals on the table, and I'll have to confirm, but I anticipate the electeds will go to a quarterly serve more as an advisory board role. And so it'll be a change from how the leadership team currently operates. And then for the COG, we meet this Wednesday, and there's gonna be more information. I've got to get with Hunter Fillers. Because I am chairing the housing subcommittee for the COG on housing. And so we will have more work, and I think it's tomorrow. I've got it, and I'm still looking for it. There is a national bipartisan webinar tomorrow discussing it's for housing choice, instead of having vouchers, having direct payments, and it's being done and piloted in some of the areas in the seminar is addressing those where that is in place, and it's one of the things, while we don't have control over to a certain extent a local meeting, or we have no budgets to do that. There are local governments that are doing that as a way to get around the fact that the landlords are not taking the vouchers. And they're just, it's instead of the vouchers, it's just direct payments and getting those folks in housing. So again, as soon as I find that again, I'll share that. I saw the email right before this meeting and I apologize, so I'll just have to get that to you later. That's it.
Evelyn?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, one other thing?
Yes, Kevin.
I am turned out on NCLM Legislative Action Committee, so, I will not be on, I will be applying to go back on, because I can go back on in 2 years. But, I am term limited out, so. But those listening sessions are open to all, so I encourage everyone to participate.
Do you know when they're going to announce the new appointments?
They've already announced, either late July or early August. It was in the.
In an email somewhere.
Yes.
Evelyn?
Yes, I went to the fire department meeting. There will be a new fire truck here in October. And in 4 to 5 years, there will be another fire truck purchased there. They do the all by Spectrum, SBHA, I think. And the reason that they choose this company is because the inside of it, where everything is the same, and the firefighters don't have to learn the inside of the fire truck all over again. That was their reason. And the other thing that they discussed was adding another bank, which would be the 5th or the 6th. See what?
Did you say bank?
Bank, BANK. They want to not overdo the money in their bank. The federal government will do. And that took up the finding the 5th or 6th bank took up part of the meeting, and the other part was the veterans. And I can go into others, but that's enough.
Thank you.
Well,
Okay, if there are no other reports, I will take a motion to go into executive session.
Closed session, so moved.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Second.
Thank you, Rob. Okay.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take a little break and stretch our legs.